Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. And today we're going to talk about how much can you sell a high-ticket dropshipping business for. I think a lot of businesses out there aren't sellable. The low-ticket dropshipping turn and burns are not sellable. Amazon FBA gets a mighty low multiple because they're relying on Amazon FBA for their business, whereas high-ticket dropshipping, you actually can get paid quite well. If I told you 3, 4, 5 years of profit paid out ahead of time, that would be intriguing, I hope, if you're listening to this. So, yeah, and we have some personal experiences to share as well. I've sold a few businesses. John sold a business, and so, and maybe a few businesses. I don't even know. John, I hope you have some stories for me today. I'm definitely going to share how I've sold businesses and what that looked like, and hopefully get the listener excited about the fact that they're building a real asset when they build a high-ticket dropshipping business.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is always an exciting conversation, I think, and it's a conversation that a lot of people love to hear about, because I think when a lot of people start a high-ticket dropshipping business, they do have in the back of their mind that I'm building an asset here, and one of the things I might like to do one day is sell it to, take the money, take a big chunk of cash. That might be cool for some people. I think there's probably a second question that falls behind all of this, which is when should you sell your high-ticket dropshipping business? I think that's a question. I don't know if we'll get to that today. If we do, cool. But I think that's another question a lot of people answer, along with how much could I sell my high-ticket dropshipping business for, which does, I think, have some interesting answers. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a good question to answer. And you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people probably don't expect that you can sell these businesses for as much as you could in certain circumstances, for sure.
Yeah, I think I was blown away when I first started figuring out what I wanted to do way back in 2014. I was blown away. That intrigued me, right? If I can go make whatever $2,000 a month profit, run the business for a year, I'll get $24,000 in my pocket. But also I can sell my business for $72,000 or more. That was intriguing to me, right? The fact that you can sell on a multiple, on future earnings, or, based on your previous profit, but multiplied ahead. So you're getting your next few years profit in your pocket now. That's very intriguing. Also, you're selling an asset, right? So if you've held it for longer than a year, you're going to get long-term capital gains, at least here in the United States. So you're going to get favorable tax rates when you move on from that business. And so this has been one of my most intriguing parts about dropshipping. And I'm surprised that we're into the hundreds of episodes where we haven't really discussed this before.
Yeah. So maybe the starting point is, Ben, you've been through this process a few times. Maybe you could just walk people through, in a basic sense. I mean, obviously there's some variables here, but how is a business like this valued? How do you come up with a number if you're sitting there and you've got a high ticket dropshipping business that's making X amount of dollars a month or whatever? How do people work that out? Yeah.
So the number one thing you're going to need is clean books, right? And I learned this the hard way. I don't know if you did as well, John, the first time you sold a business.
A little, yeah.
You're going to need clean books. You're going to need to follow some of our other episodes, or in our course, we recommend just set aside some credit cards for this business so that they are just for this business. Set aside a bank account for this business. When I first started, I didn't have credit cards to use. I didn't open a bank account for it. And so everything was kind of commingled, and it took a long time to unwind all of that and get it all correct. So the first thing you want to do is have great books, right? Inside of Dropship Breakthru, we have Isaac Smith, who's come in there and done some wonderful work for us on how to do your books correctly. We have some credit card recommendations. We have some advice on how to keep this separate. I recommend, keep everything housed in one place so that you have good books. From those books, you can determine your amount of net profit. And again, in a high ticket dropshipping business, you're taking that money home every month, right? There's not a lot of rollover that you need to have month after month. And so you can come to pretty clean books month over month of what you're actually making. And it's not just on paper like a direct to consumer business where you're buying inventory all the time. This is like legitimate profit at the end of the month. And so once you have good books, you have your profit in place, then it comes down to a broker placing a multiple on your business. So I've used Empire Flippers in the past, empireflippers.com. I've used Quiet Light Brokerage in the past, quietlightbrokerage.com. And there are many other places for you to sell your business. Flippa is one place. Biz Buy Sell is another place. I believe there's quite a few other places for you to sell your online business. And in those marketplaces, most of the reputable ones have a broker for you who is going to help you value that business based upon where you're getting your traffic, how many different products you're selling, how many different brands you're selling, and just how diversified you are. Like that really encompasses the whole thing. They want to understand, are you getting traffic from anywhere else besides Google Ads? If not, then Google Ads is kind of your daddy here, and daddy can turn off the faucet anytime he wants to. It's the reason Amazon FBA businesses don't get a big multiple, because they are so reliant on Amazon. So if you're only relying on Google Ads, you're going to get a lower multiple than the business who gets 30% of their sales from Google Ads, 10% of their sales from Bing Ads, 30% of their sales from SEO, 20% of their sales from email marketing, so on and so forth. The more diversified you are, the higher the multiple you will get on your profit. And so what they do is they take your last 12 months. So they'll look at your books for the trailing 12 months, and they'll add up your profit from that period of time, and they'll place a multiple on that. I believe Empire Flippers likes to do months, which gets a little confusing when you say big numbers, and Quiet Light Brokerage prefers to do years. But either way, you're coming to the same conclusion, right? So get your books clean, understand what your profit is, and then a broker will help you determine how diversified are you to give you a multiple on your business. And there are some other things that fall in there, John, based on how long have you been in business, how big is your business? I know the bigger you get, the bigger multiple you actually get on that dollar figure because you're bigger. And so what have you seen, John? Am I missing anything there on how they value your business?
So they will look at what systems you have in place. So I think that the good way to think about how you're going to get a good multiple applied, but then actually get somebody agree to that multiple. Because what's going to happen is your broker and yourself are going to come up with a valuation, right? And you're going to say, yeah, I'm happy with that. The broker's going to say, yeah, we're happy with that. It's going to go out into the market. People are going to start looking at it, and they're going to come back and make an offer. Now, their offer does not have to be what you put on it. They might come back and say, well, due to these factors, we're thinking to go a valuation of 20 times whatever your monthly net profit is right, rather than your suggested 24 times. Because of these factors. So if you want to set a business up to have somebody be the most likely to agree to wherever your starting point is, you have to put yourself in their shoes. So put yourself in the shoes of a website investor, somebody who might have, and this is generally who's going to buy one of these businesses that are reasonably valuable. I'm not talking about people who are just building a get started business. I'm talking about if you had a business that you're going to sell for 6 figures, right? Most of the buyers of those businesses have some existing e-commerce experience. They might have some other websites they already own. So they know what they're looking at. They're not complete newbies usually. So what do they want? They want to be able to walk into a business and not have to do all the work, right? They want to walk into a business that's just going to keep running and keep producing that annual or monthly profit figure that is already producing, and they want to see that there might be some easy to turn knobs to dial that up, right? So some opportunity to grow it. That's what they want to do as well. So one of the things that they're going to be looking at is systems. Who's doing the customer service? Are there SOPs in place for that? Can they, if there's VAs doing that, are the VAs coming with the business? So if you have your business well systematized and set up so that it can kind of almost run without you, right? You're going to get people with more money more interested in your business, because they don't want to walk into a job, right? When somebody buys a business, if they're spending a decent amount of money, they're not buying a job. That's not what they're buying. So they don't want to walk into a business where they're going to have to work 40 hours a week to maintain the amount of money that they've invested in. So I think that's actually a bigger and less obvious one. Things like the size of your email list can be a factor. So if you've been proactive in, you've got a decent sized customer list, which will obviously, a customer list comes with size of the business, which you mentioned, Ben. But if you've got a big email list of prospective customers because you've been proactive with things like content marketing and email capture on your site over a couple of years, then that can lead to a better multiple as well, because there's money. People say there's money in your list. That's true. And so particularly if somebody is buying your business to bolt onto another business that they already have in that niche, right? But I think you hit the main points. Diversification is a big one. Like anytime somebody looks at your business, and I've done this, I've looked at people's businesses before, and I've looked at, and they've just got Google ads running. And I'm like, okay, so I've got to do all the SEO work basically here, which is can be a ton of work, particularly if they've been running the business for 3 years and they've done none of it and they've built their whole website without SEO in mind. I look at that and I go, oh my God, that is so unattractive. Why would I want to pay a lot for a business and then have to go in and do all that work that they were just too lazy to do because they've been relying just on Google ads for all that time, which, as you say, could get cut off at any point in time. So yeah, diversification, systems, clean books, giving the person who's requesting for access, so making sure they can get access to things like your Google Analytics, all of that sort of stuff, so that they can do their due diligence properly, not making the due diligence process difficult because you're trying to mask things or withhold certain things. Doing all of those things is going to lead to somebody paying you more money for your website when it comes down to agreeing an offer.
Yeah, a little tangent here, John, just because you went there. So Empire Flippers has these avatars. This is actually like a future podcast episode from John and I, helping you understand how to do the avatars in your business. I learned from this. And I thought it was kind of cute how they were doing it, right? So they had Empire Flippers specifically has personas that they market to. Now, your dropshipping business is also going to have these personas, and hopefully we can figure out a way to like teach this. This is difficult to teach, but hopefully your brain wraps around it here. You need to make your business attractive to one of these people, right? So they call them newbie norm, which is somebody new who wants to buy a business. They're looking for something probably easy. They might be looking for a job rather than a business to run. They also have Lifestyle Larry, which is looking for a lifestyle business, something they can run remotely and they don't need a big team. And so, we're working our way up the ladder here. They're also going to look for Flipper Fred. You might have an interest selling to somebody who's going to flip it, somebody who sees value in underpriced assets, something they can make a couple tweaks on and then flip the business again. They have DIY Dave. I actually don't know what that one means. They have Strategic Sally, who's looking for a strategic acquisition for them to bolt on to another business, right? And so you can imagine how you could set up your business to be attractive to another business to come acquire you. They have Portfolio Paul. I believe we have one of those in our audience. Hi, Ian. He buys businesses to plug into his system. He just bolts on more businesses because he has a portfolio of these. He has a team running multiple ones. And then they also have Investor Ivan, who's not looking to run anything. They want to buy your business because they see a repeatable opportunity for income to come into their business. And honestly, buying a business is the best return you should get on your money. If you identify a good business that's repeatable, you're going to get a higher rate of return buying a business than you ever will on any sort of other investment. And so those are the personas that Empire Flippers has. You have to make your business attractive to one of those personas if you're hoping to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once again, the more you're hoping to sell it for, the more you move away from some of those avatars, right? So if you're talking about a business that's going to sell for multiple six figures, you're pretty much squarely going to be away from DIY as lifestyle people, because that's a significant amount of money that most people are not going to just have sitting in a bank account unless they are already in business and they can make that sort of investment. They know how to do that deal. So you're going to be looking at, Portfolio Paul, I think he was, and the Sally one, whoever the investor was,
Strategic Sally,
Strategic Sally, or the investor one, right? That those are going to be your avatars that you want to appeal to. So think about how you can make your site, and this is a good thing to think about well ahead of time if you're just building your business. If this is really you think might be one of your end goals, or there's no end goal, but a goal for your business journey is to sell a site. The earlier you set it up to be an attractive prospect, the earlier you do the work, because some of the work, the worst thing I see, and I've had multiple times where I've had a client that I'm advising about getting their business ready to sell. They want to sell for some reason, and they come to me and they say, I want to sell next month. And I'm like, okay, let's have a look at it. And they haven't done any number of things that are going to take them 6 months to implement. And I'm like, yeah, you could sell that next month, but you're going to get so much less money than if you do this, and this, but that's going to take you 6 months or to 12 months. So can you wait? Because you're going to get way more money if you do that. Whereas if you had have built your business in the beginning with the right things in place, and I'm going to say as a side note, if you do what we suggest you should do in our program and on this podcast, you're probably going to do a lot of that in the first place, then your chances of appealing to those avatars is at the time that you actually want to is going to be a lot higher. for sure.
Yeah, I think you have to think ahead for more than that reason. Number one, you're probably being a little frivolous with your money. You're trying new things, and you should always be trying new things, but you're also going to want to tighten up the belt to make sure that you are, squeezing that profit line as best you can while still growing, right? I'm on Empire Flippers right now. I would encourage you to do this. Go to empireflippers.com, sort by dropshipping. You can see some dropshipping businesses for sale. They put profit of the last 12 months, revenue of the last 12 months, traffic of the last 12 months, and then an arrow. Is it up or down? That's another thing you're going to want to have a growing business. People aren't likely to be interested in a dying business, or more so will be interested in a growing business. So look, let's get to the meat of this, John. There is a multiple to be had here. And it shocked me in the beginning that you could get that kind of a multiple for your business. And I'd love to just share our own experiences and why we may have gotten the multiples that we got. But, reality is you should, depending how long your business and all the other factors we talked about, get somewhere between a 2.5x, 2.5 yearly, and all the way up to a 10x multiple on your business, with the average being roughly 3 to 4 times multiple on your profit for the last 12 months. Meaning, if you did 100,000 profit in the last trailing 12 months, someone should offer you 250,000 to $1 million for your business in one lump sum, so that you can move on to new things and have a nice payday. I've been paid everywhere in that spectrum, John. So I'm curious, if you remember where your business sold. But I'll start. The first one I sold, I was running for less than a year. I averaged somewhere between $1,600 and $2,000 profit, if I remember correctly. I got a 28x multiple from Empire Flippers on that. So just barely at 2.3, whatever that is, 2.4. And the total came to 43,000 or something like that is what they ended up listing my business for. And I will say, you can sell smaller sites on Empire Flippers than you can on Quiet Light Brokerage as well. So, but for me, I was making $40,000 a year driving a forklift at a Walmart distribution center. And the fact that I could build this in less than a year while working full time, and it was listed for 1 year's pay, that made my fucking day. I'll tell you that. And it sold. It sold. I got an offer at $39,500, and that is what I accepted for that first business.
Hey, obviously you're interested in high-ticket dropshipping, wondering what you're going to sell. That's usually what people think about long before they ever purchase a course or even get started. John and I want to help you with that. We're running a 5-day challenge. Check it out at dropshipbreakthru.com/5. 5 days. You'll figure out exactly what you're going to sell, and you'll be ready to start your high-ticket dropshipping journey when you're done.
Yeah, it's funny selling your first business. So I sold my first business as well. I held it for a bit longer than you did. Of course, which was the chic chandeliers, selling the house lights and the chandeliers and that sort of thing. So I had that for nearly 3 years, probably two and a half-ish years. I sold that for $250,000 at the time. That was what we sold at. I will say, and I'm going to say that I kind of wish I didn't do that. I'm not a fan of, I'm in the camp of these days, I'm not a fan of selling businesses anymore. When I first started, for the same reasons, I thought this was really sexy. I thought, wow, yeah, I could get a year's pay or more in a really short, what is apparently in my pocket in a really short space of time. And I thought that sounded really good. And I did sell that business for other reasons. One, I really didn't love it at all. That was a big part of it. I just was so disinterested in that market. I was just sick of it. I was sick of the products. And you could probably say, well, you should have outsourced it more, blah, blah, blah. But at the time, I was just so over it that I wanted to go and do some new things, start some new businesses and all that sort of thing. So that was my motivation for selling. But aside from that, I will say it was valued originally at a higher number than that. I can't remember what it was. But what happened with that was it actually took a lot longer to sell than I thought it would. So it was on the market because it was an Australian site, and the pool of people who are going to buy a site in Australia are smaller. They're still there. I don't want to put anybody off from this, but for that particular one, and this was going back years, right, when e-commerce was a lot smaller than it is now, it took months. And when I listed it, and I once again, I hadn't really thought ahead about this because I thought it was going to sell quicker than it did. But it ended up being on the market over December and January, which are the smallest times of year. By a long way on that site. The sales dropped off a long way. Now, selling on Empire Flippers where they do it a monthly valuation, right? And so what actually happens is, or I don't know if they still do this, they used to, they update your valuation every month if it sits there for multiple months. So I went through the quietest period of the year where their valuation dropped, and then I had a series buyer come on, and they saw that, and they offered me a lot less than if they had been looking at it in, say, June or July. And by that stage, I think I had just mentally already let go of it. And I was like, it's still a big chunk of money that I don't have. And it's big enough that I can do a lot with that. And so I took it. And I kind of wish I didn't these days. You know what I mean?
I had a similar situation where it was the end. I want to say it was the end of January. Honestly, I don't remember. It was either end of January or end of February. And if they would have, when the first came around, they would have been like, hey, where's your books for last month? And reset. I was having the worst month ever. And I'd never been in, I want to say it was February. I've never been in a February before because my business wasn't even a year old. And so I didn't know what to expect. But had it rolled over, I probably would have had to pull my business off the market. It would have just dropped so much by having a really bad month. And that's the reason I had such a poor multiple, because I was such a short-term volatile business, that things like that could happen. So interesting that I don't know if I have regrets, John. Like a lot of other businesses, I do have some regrets.
Yeah.
The first one I don't. It was just like, if you can get a nice payday for the hard work that you've done, and it's in an industry you don't want to be in, but now you have all these skills, and now you have a runway to go do something you actually want to do, or in an industry you want to be in, by all means, take a sale. There's some that I regret for sure. That's not one of them for me.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to labor on the regret thing. It's just the benefit of hindsight, right? You always often look back on things and say, like, I did really poor by my current standards SEO work on that site.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I can't help but thinking, if I had that site and I knew what I knew now, and I had it for that length of time, like, the results would have been phenomenally different, I think, obviously. And I would have sold for a lot more because I would have done that work, which I now know I should have done all along. And, so you have those thoughts that go around in your head, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I wouldn't change it, I think, because where I am today is partly because of selling that site, right? So
your face is still on.
I love where I am today. I wouldn't. Well, I probably could buy it back if I really wanted to. It's still there. I don't think
your face is still on
much.
Man.
I know, it's crazy, hey.
Same with me, right? So I sold that business. I was, look, I'll say what it was. I was coerced into taking some of that money and investing into two Amazon FBA gentlemen that you've definitely heard me bitch about before, or at least one of them. That ended up working out well. Like we ended up selling that Amazon FBA business. We were selling coloring books, Creatively Calm Studios. We sold that business for $350,000. So that worked out all right. But even if I had regrets, and look, I could have done a lot more with that business, and the new owners ran into the ground, so we'll never know what it could have been. There was greener pastures or things I cared more about. I just didn't care about 3D printers, nor did I care about a few of the businesses that I also exited. So look, to keep moving forward, I've sold things not through a broker as well. And the process is very similar. If you have somebody interested in your business, you are just going to negotiate what you think that rate should be. They're going to tell you why it shouldn't be, and you're going to say why it should be. And some of those go well, some of those don't. So one of them was I partnered with a guy named Corey. We transitioned his business from selling just toilets to selling everything you would find in a tiny house. Grew the business exponentially, and he bought me back out, and we just simply agreed to a valuation. It didn't take much. We talked about it for 20 minutes. We said, yeah, this sounds fair. I want to say it was a 4X. And he bought me back out, and there was not much negotiation there, where I sold another business to someone who had never bought a business before. And that was honestly like an email every other day of him haggling me down $500 and another $500 and another $500 till I was just like, oh my God, do you want to buy this business or not? And we settled on a number that, like, in hindsight, I should have never sold that business for that price. That is one I do have a regret on, but private can be good. Private can be bad. Certainly you're going to save that 10% fee from dealing with a brokerage, but sometimes a broker can get you a better deal where that 10% makes a lot more sense. And honestly, they're working for you. They're doing a lot of work for you. So I'm happy to pay a broker.
Yeah, I think, and once again, I mean, all brokers will have a minimum threshold that your business needs to be valued at for them to sell you, to work with you, right? So I think there's definitely a level where, I mean, if you've got a business that want to get rid of for whatever reason and it hasn't done a lot yet, like you just sell it. Shopify, Exchange, Flipper, you mentioned a few of them. Sell it yourself, right? Visit some Facebook groups where likely buyers hang out and see if you can post a store for sale type thing. Well, I mean, we have it, people do it in our Facebook groups as well. If you're at that lower level, then I think that makes more sense than working with a broker necessarily, because it's really just, you're just selling it based on whatever somebody else is willing to pay to save the time more than anything, right? I mean, but if you've got a business that's, you know, a multiple 7-figure a year business or something like that, then that's hard. I think that's pretty hard to sell yourself because you don't have the connections to sell that. I mean, that's really, for me, what a broker should be bringing to the table is, yes, they're going to smooth through the selling process, the negotiation, the handover stuff at the end, but they actually have the list of people who are likely to buy these things, and they know those people. They'll go proactively and talk to them and talk to individuals and say, hey, we've got this store for sale. We think it's a good fit for you. Do you want to come and have a look at it, meet the owner, have a chat to them, et cetera, et cetera. That 10% or whatever commission you're giving to the broker for that, that's really what you're buying, is connection that you do not have, generally speaking. Like if you go into a Facebook group and post, I've got a store for sale, it's, you know, $750,000 if you want to buy it, there's going to be crickets. There's going to be crickets and people who just want to find out what you're selling, right? So you are not rarely going to find serious buyers at that sort of level in a Facebook group.
Well, one broker I love, his name is Chuck. He works for Quiet Light Brokerage. I'm a big fan of the guy. He's an awesome dude. And I took a note while we were talking here, John. John and I are hoping in 2023 to build out some mini courses that we can add to our elite subscription to give people more opportunities to learn a lot more. And I think this would be a great opportunity to invite Chuck in and say, what does it actually take to sell your business? How have you brought the biggest multiple to dropshipping businesses? What are our dropshipping owners not thinking of? And, make that introduction to Chuck, who I'm sure would be happy to help find a buyer for your business.
Hey, real quick, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us grow this channel so we can reach more people, so we can change more lives through e-commerce. I appreciate you.
Sounds like a plan.
Look, I want to address one other thing. So we talked about like selling your business comes down to profit here. But often what we see in our Facebook group sometimes, John, is students or people who aren't our students who have built a business and it's not making any money. And then they come into our group and they say, here's my business. It's done $30,000 in revenue, $0 profit, and I want $50,000 from my business. How do you value a business when, look, we've talked about this. The biggest investment you're going to have in the beginning is your time. You're going to put a lot of effort into this, right? So I don't want to say that these businesses are valueless, but I don't think some folks who are ready to, kick the can down the road, or they're ready to give up, or whatever it is, whatever reason they're selling this starter business, I don't think they realize how, I don't want to say how little it's valued, but it's nowhere near valued of what we've seen people post in our group. So those listening who have a starter site and they want to sell it to somebody else who's ready to take that on board, how do you value a business like that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because there is value there. I do believe there's value there for sure. But it's much more subjective when you don't have the dollar history, the profit history to support it, right? You can't sell a business. So the other mistake those people make who make those posts is they'll say, well, there's all this potential. You should buy the potential. Right. Businesses do not sell based on potential. And if you're buying a business based on potential, you're making a massive mistake. The reason for that is because that is not realized. It is not set in stone. The person who's buying has to do all that work. And you can't say to somebody, I'm selling you something, and for that amount of money, and you're actually going to have to make it happen because I haven't done it yet. When somebody buys a business, they're paying for what's already happened. And yes, you can say off the back of that, some things are likely to happen in the future. If it's already been producing profit, it's a reasonable thing to suggest that it's going to continue to produce profit. But when it's not profitable, sometimes there can be a large amount of work to turn that around that you just haven't done. Maybe you're not willing to do it. That's fine, but you can't expect somebody to pay you for that. And so where the value for those businesses comes in is primarily around, once again, time saving in my mind. So if you say, I've built a high ticket dropshipping website, I've done all these modifications to it, I've improved it in all these ways, I've set up some great content, which you can see. I've started the SEO process. I've got 15 suppliers on board. I've uploaded all of these products. The product pages look really good. You know, these are all things that people can see. Recreating that actually takes time. That might be 2 months of work. It might be 3 months of work. It might be 6 months of work. If somebody was starting in the position, so once again, you're a DIY person, or you're starting from scratch avatar, they're going to have to do all that work. And there is also expense in that. There is money that you're investing to do a lot of those things in time. So if you came to me and said, John, I've got something for you that is going to save you 300 hours of work. And I know how much my time is worth because I actually attach a dollar figure to it. I can say to you, okay, well, I like that for some reason, and I'm happy to pay you X amount of money because you're saving that time from me. And I attach this much value to my time. And so that's why I say selling one of those websites is far more subjective, because you're going to come up with a number that you think it's worth. And it shouldn't be exorbitant, because it's not going to work. And you're just going to get people pulling you to shreds online who think you're an idiot, right? Which doesn't feel good either. You're going to come up with a number of what you think it's worth, but somebody's going to come back to you and they're going to suggest any other number, right? They might agree to your number, but they may put a different value on the time it would take to do that. So I look at the time that some people say it's taken them, and I say, well, I think I could do that in half the time if I did it myself. So if you're asking for an amount of money that is more than what I value half of the time at, then I'm going to come back to you with a much lower number. And we might negotiate around a little bit, but I'm definitely not going to give you what you're asking for if it's a really, if you're saying I'm going to charge you 50 grand for something that I think will take me a month to put together, I'm not going to pay you 50,000 for that, right? So,
Yeah, and I've got one tangible example.
Yeah.
Like I bought a business very early on, right? I bought the 3D printer guy from someone in the forums who was selling it, and I paid $400. He had 4 suppliers. I paid $400. He wanted $800. I think I didn't have $800, so I gave him, here's what I can do, and he took it. I think, yeah, I don't know how to tell somebody who's put a lot of work in and they want to get paid for it, how to really, again, put yourself in someone else's shoes. There's no guarantee there. They're simply buying time, as John said. So you have to come with more of a realistic value, unless we've seen it. We've seen people post in our Facebook group a price that's unrealistic, and the comments let them have it. Just like that, this business isn't worth that, and that's not a good feeling either. So, but I wanted to address that because there is people out there who they quit, right? We've had all other podcasts. Why do so many people quit? They quit, and they have businesses for sale. And so hopefully that helps people who want to list one or want to hop in our group and snag one of those businesses to get rolling. An idea of where that price should be.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll be honest. I advised somebody on this a couple of months ago, who was one of our students who had built a website. They'd put quite a bit of work into it. It's a really nice looking website, had plenty of suppliers approved, had plenty of products uploaded, and had a lot of things done, custom stuff done that you would have to pay to get done and all that sort of thing. And it was a really nice looking business. And I actually thought this has probably got some potential for the right person. But they were going in a different direction in life, not going to do dropshipping at all anymore. And so they wanted to offload it. And I said, I think that's worth $5,000 to $10,000 as it is. Like, you've got these idiots out there selling done for you businesses for like $30,000, $40,000. I'm not going to name names here, and people buy those, which I think is mind boggling. But, $5,000 to $10,000 for that site. It was a nice site. Had a lot of work done, because I could easily see that it would take somebody months and months to recreate the work that was done there. And yeah, it hadn't made many sales. It had made sales, not a lot of profit, not enough to do a valuation off. It wasn't old enough anyway, really. But 5 to 10,000, I thought that was a good ballpark.
I love that we're a little different, because I would say like 10 to 20 is probably like my window there. Like, I can imagine, like, if we ever offered that as a service, I would fight you on like the 5 to 10, and just knowing that we would have, a relatively fucking perfect website to hand off to somebody. But it's a lot of work, dude, to build a website, call all the suppliers, upload all the products, build out collection pages. Like, if you did all that, and you did it right, you shouldn't be selling anyway, because it's going to start working real soon if you did a good job. And so you're likely not going to find one that's done a good job. But if you did, yeah, I'll put that in the 10 to 20 range probably.
Yeah, sure. Like I say, it's subjective though, right? Hey, it's totally subjective at that sort of price range. So I think if you're going into that, don't set your expectations anywhere. Just go on a fishing exercise, go through some negotiations, see what you come up with. If you're happy with it, take it.
Well, I've sold everything from $40K up to close to $1 million. You can sell in all sorts of different ways. And so hopefully this encourage you to get started so that maybe you can sell a business one day. I know it was a big deal for me when I sold a business and I was able to pay off all my debt. That was a big fucking day. And so whatever that big day is for you, I hope you can get it. I hope this inspires you. Definitely check out Quiet Light Brokerage, check out Empire Flippers for some inspiration on what that could look like. And if you have further questions, if you're on YouTube, post them down below. We'll do the best we can to answer them. If you're a student, post them in Slack or in the Dropship Tribe Facebook group or wherever you'd like to post them. We'd love to answer more questions, and I'll definitely get a hold of Chuck from Quiet Light and see if he can do some custom course for us, because I think that'd be really cool for our students.